On this episode, Dobbs Ferry, New York is losing pedestrian access to development. A lawyer explains sovereign immunity, tort, duty, notice, and their relation to sidewalk defects. An elderly woman in Oswego, New York, makes an inventory of sidewalk defects. A pedestrian in New York City is concerned about bicyclists that don't follow the rules. And finally, we look at sexual harassment of pedestrians in New York City. Stay tuned.
We're in Dobbs Ferry, New York, talking with Rob Barron. What's the story on these steps behind us beyond the fence?
Well, these steps have been here for a generation, and it was a connection between the people who live up at the top of the hill, which is one of the most densely populated parts of our village, and the elementary school that's right behind this camera. And I guess about 5 or 6 years ago, the insurance company for the school said that because the condition of the steps wasn't perfect, and even though it's going through a wooded place that looks like a trail, that the school, should be concerned about its liability and close the steps. And so they've been closed with this fence that you can see behind you for all these years. And so those kids who live up there, who are probably only about 250 yards from the school, get bused.
What impact does it have on the children and on the school budget for busing?
Well, as you know, that we definitely need another bus to take those kids to school, and that costs money. But those kids, like all kids around the country, are experiencing child obesity rates that are much higher than most of the other, or all the other major industrialized countries. And it's a real problem. Kids not getting enough exercise, kids, basically sitting and not walking to where they need to walk, and not being healthy.
And this is, one little right-of-way that's cut off. What's the situation with other right-of-ways around town where people have traditionally walked?
Well, as the village has developed, and as originally this is an older village that used to be a very pedestrian-friendly place, sometimes with, but sometimes without sidewalks because there weren't as many cars on the road. But as the village has developed into a more sort of car-centric place, you have a lot of the right-of-ways that were previously open woods have been purchased, turned into homes, often single-family homes or townhouses, and fences have been erected. So the historical ways that kids used to walk then are gone, and so now the kids are shunted onto roads, most of which don't have sidewalks, have a lot more cars than they used to, don't have crosswalks to get across those roads, and you're creating a very dangerous situation. And you're feeding back into that childhood obesity thing where parents are saying, we're not going to let our kids walk around this town anymore. We're going to drive them everywhere. So that just exacerbates the traffic problems.
In terms of driving everywhere, do people feel like they have to drive everywhere here?
Well, and this is again probably a national phenomenon, but there's the downtowns of a lot of these villages, because they don't have the parking facilities, because they were built as sort of walkable places, have lost a lot of those stores that people think of necessities. In our village, for a long time, there were no clothing stores. Right now, there's probably one clothing store that's somewhat specialized, but that's it. There hasn't been a shoe store in this village probably for 25 years. So what that means is to get the necessities of life, you need to drive. And the drive, for us, it means driving to a mall, which is 15-20 minutes away, or driving to the main artery that goes down the middle of the county, which has all the big box stores, which just, again, exacerbates traffic.
So what would help for kids to be able to get around this town they would have been able to a generation ago?
Well, that's a good question, because some people say, well, it's just a mindset. The parents have to let the kids walk, And a lot of parents are worried about letting their kids walk because of the traffic dangers or other, not necessarily, the more sort of perception that they're worried about their kids being alone on the street and being snatched or something like that, which isn't statistically a real problem. But so you have to sort of battle that perception with like education campaigns to get people to walk. But then, it's not just education. And that's what, a lot of times people say, oh, we have to educate people. But there are real structural problems, the lack of sidewalks, the lack of crosswalks that prevent children, and the lack of right-of-ways that prevent children from getting from point A to point B. And it means that parents or somebody who's being paid by parents has to be the driver, the chaperone for a child to get anywhere in this village. And that's a big problem.
What's the future of these steps?
Okay. Fortunately, and I say fortunately, I don't want to be too optimistic, but with the federal effort for Safe Route for Schools program, which is I think a very small amount of money, and it really needs to be 10 times the size of what it is if we're going to combat this issue of childhood obesity. Our school district, Dobbs Ferry Public Schools, has applied and won a grant from the Safe Route for Schools program. And I commend them for the foresight to do that. So we do have money to fix these steps and put them in compliance with our insurance company, so that they will in the future be open for kids from that area, and hopefully we'll be able to save bus money and we'll be able to combat childhood obesity. So.
We're talking with Janine Bauer about legal issues. What is sovereign immunity?
Sovereign immunity is a concept that America inherited from England. Basically, it means that the king is never wrong and the king can't be sued, because if he's never wrong, then he won't have to pay any damages. And America followed the sovereign immunity rule for hundreds of years until the late 1960s, when courts ended it and gave state legislatures and Congress the opportunity to pass laws that essentially reestablished it, but according to rules instead of just royalty.
And where does the concept of tort fit into this then?
A tort is either property damage or personal injury. Generally, it means a wrong that's done to someone. And when someone is hurt on the public highway or street or sidewalk or any publicly owned building and gets hurt, generally he or she files a lawsuit, and that's called a tort claim. And what happens under the Tort Claims Acts, that is the acts that the legislatures passed following the abrogation of sovereign immunity, certain duties were established, and basically local governments or superior governments have to maintain their public infrastructure in a safe way. But there are a lot of exceptions to that, because the general rule is that they want to protect the public purse, in other words, the public fisc, from having to pay out a lot of judgments for tort claims. So it's a very narrow area where you can kind of thread the needle and get your tort claim paid. And it depends on whether there's a duty, and it also depends on notice.
And what is the concept of notice?
Well, the concept of notice means that the government has to be on notice that there's a problem with the area. In other words, it has to be on notice that there was a pothole into which your car drove and lost its wheel, or that there was a hole in the sidewalk into which the victim fell and got hurt. If the government's not on notice, then it didn't have any way of fixing it, because obviously it can't have its eye on every brick everywhere all the time. So it has to be on notice of something. And a lot of claims get dismissed because the government can say it wasn't on notice. And a lot of the other claims get dismissed because the government says, well, we didn't have a duty to do that, or there was a plan and design approved for that, and even though you may think it's unsafe, you being the victim, in fact, it's safe enough, and therefore we don't have any duty to make it safer for you. So there's a difference between having something be very safe and just having it be well maintained.
Are there problems with the way the system works now?
Well, there are problems in terms of safety. Tort Claims Acts were, as I say, driven by fiscal concerns because they didn't want to make the taxpayer essentially the insurer of all public property and public buildings and public hospitals and everything that was government owned. The problem is that by immunizing designs and plans and structures that are unsafe or that operate in unsafe ways, sometimes people get a little lax about really looking out for people and property, and then they get hurt and they can't be recompensed for that. So the object of safety really should have been a twin object along with fiscal responsibility, and sometimes safety gets short shrift.
We're in Oswego, New York, talking with Kathleen Harris. What are the sidewalks like here in Oswego?
Well, they're not in very good shape at all. They're dangerous for a lot of people, young and old, particularly the old, because when they fall, there is always a possibility of broken hips, broken legs, broken teeth, and however, but younger people, they get hurt too, but somehow or other they don't have to risk the broken bones. That's why it's such a serious, hazardous situation here. Needs to be repaired and not be neglected as it has been for the last 150 years or more.
What's been your personal experience with the sidewalks?
My personal experience has been falling from time to time through the years, but never giving any thought to how dangerous it was until I finally got older myself and realized that even though I fell, that I could have been hurt more worse than what I had been, because at least my doctors told me. So that's why I realized that something had to be done.
Okay, and a few years ago, you tripped on a spot in the sidewalk and fell. Went to the doctor. What did you do as a result of that?
Well, when I went to the doctor, I had to have x-rays. So I called the city and told them I was going to sue them. And they said, you can't because we don't know where the sidewalks are, so we're where the bad parts are, so that we're not responsible for them, which was true. That's the law that the city has, and I imagine every other city has that same law. That they don't know where a dangerous spot is, they're not responsible for it.
Okay, so the city's sort of hiding behind the New York State law that protects them. What did you decide to do as a result of that?
Well, finally I listened to that excuse for so many times that I thought, well, I told them, I says, I'm going to measure every damn raised up flag in the whole city. I said, and I'm going to have it recorded with your clerk, and I said, you're going to be responsible from now on.
And the process of going about, checking the sidewalks, what was involved in checking for defects, and what were you recording on?
Well, I had for each reading that I had to bend down with a ruler and measure it on the ruler, and then write it on a pad, and then look to see where it was. If we're near a house, what the number of the house was. If there was no number on the house, I had to just describe the house and no number. So we had to know the location of where each bed flag was. And I'll tell you, there were many, many, many. So they're all recorded now. The city is responsible. If anyone falls, it will no longer be Medicare, Medicaid, and your own private insurance that does the paying for it. It'll be the city that's going to have to foot the bill. And they can also be sued for pain and suffering besides.
And rather than just have people suing the city, what would you like to see the city do besides just hiring lawyers?
Well, the city, being responsible now, isn't going to be very happy about paying for all these lawsuits. So in order to avoid that, the smartest thing for them to do is to spend the money repairing the sidewalks so that people won't be hurt and people won't be able to sue them.
We're in New York City talking with Mallory Stevens.
Hi, John.
What are some of the concerns you have trying to get around the city?
I'm very concerned about the bicycle situation. I understand that bicyclists are concerned about efficiency of movement. They can squirm in and out the traffic and make good time. I understand that there are people who are very passionate about bicycling. There are issues of transportation, sustainability, the environment, etc. However, the hazards that these bicyclists, or a great majority of the bicyclists pose, is tremendous. And I fear that there are just terrible accidents and even fatalities, even though I know the statistics don't corroborate any of this, just around the corner.
What are some of the things you see bicyclists doing that are particularly dangerous?
Okay, how long do you have? Riding against the traffic, weaving in and out, riding on sidewalks, wearing two earbuds, texting.
So you see people texting while they're...
I saw somebody texting, yes.
So it's not just the motor vehicle drivers we have to worry about driving while distracted.
Right. Although I only saw one bicyclist texting, but it's one too many, I think. I feel very strongly that bicycles should be regulated. They're moving vehicles. I recently looked at the New York State official website and their rules and regulations regarding bicyclists. And as I had known, bicyclists are supposed to adhere to the same rules and regulations as drivers of motorized vehicles. And I have not seen one of the rules and regulations listed, one of the laws, that's being followed. They don't stop at red lights, stop signs. It's like just ownership of the road.
And do you think this is an education problem or an enforcement problem? What sort of solution do you see going on so that bicyclists would actually follow the rules of the road?
Well, number one, I think it's an enforcement problem. I've never witnessed any bicyclists getting a ticket from an officer. And I think that bicycles should be registered. Now, I'm sure it'll be a terrible encumbrance for everybody involved, but perhaps that will have an impact on people adhering to the regulations. It's really a hazard.
We're in New York City talking with Jenny and Katrin. What sort of problems do women face walking around New York every day?
I think that the level of street harassment in the city on a daily basis, it's pretty much a nonstop backdrop to one's everyday life, and it's something you weigh in when you pretty much every time you decide to leave the house. It's sort of looking at what you're wearing and thinking, how much am I going to get harassed for this? And just sort of putting yourself in this state of mind, because you know that you're going to have to constantly be defending your boundaries throughout your entire day. And it's exhausting, and it definitely takes a mental toll.
What form does harassment take?
It could be anything from leering, making noises like psst, psst, or things like that, or to guys following you down the street. I've had guys yank my earbuds out. I've had guys, they try to meet me. They all seem to have the same dialogue of, "You married? You have a boyfriend? Can I get your number? I want to be your friend." It's all I don't know if they like all have a secret club where they write out these scripts together or something, but
And does this happen to young women, old women, rich women, poor women? Who's suffering?
I think it's an across the board phenomenon because underlying it, I think it's not ultimately about sexual attraction. It's about reminding women that they have less of a right to exist and move in the public sphere as men do, and it's a subtle form of it's a quality of life issue. I think it's a subtle form of verbal violence, and I don't think, if a guy says something to me on the street, I don't think it has much to do with what I look like. He made the same comment about that body part of mine to the last 5 women that walk by, and he'll make it to the next 5 that walk by after me. So to take it as a compliment or personally that it has much to do with what I personally look like is a little ridiculous. I think it happens to women of all ages and frankly all looks, because it's, again, it's not about being attractive, it's about putting a woman in her place. That's the underlying message.
We're talking with Emily and Jaron. We've just seen that there's a problem with harassment. What are some of the solutions you folks have been looking at or thinking about?
Well, Emily will talk a little bit more about the website that she founded, but one thing Katrine didn't mention is she did this really cool thing one summer where a group of women went and they kind of dispersed, but they had a code word when someone did harass one of the women, they would all come together and kind of confront the man. And I love stuff like that. I think I'll join her next summer and do that. But I do like Katrine's idea of stopping and confronting them, only if you feel safe. Like I'm tiny. I'm not going to go confront someone if I feel my physical person is in danger. I'm also all about prevention. So I think it's really, really important that parents and peers and everybody talk to the men. Like, why do we always make this a woman's problem when the majority of the perpetrators are men? Why aren't the parents, the fathers and the mothers talking to their boys about how not to harass women instead of telling the women, well, don't wear miniskirt because you're going to get harassed, or, you're very pretty, like just tone down, otherwise you're going to get harassed. Why are we making this the problem and the victim, when really we should be educating our sons and our brothers about what not to do to make women feel threatened and just feel in either constant fear or just, as Katrine mentioned, just feeling kind of crazy that you can't be in your own space.
Have you seen any efforts out there on educating men on the sort of respect they should be giving their fellow human beings?
Yeah, 2 organizations that I love. One of them is called Men Can Stop Rape. They're phenomenal. They're based out of DC, and they're all about changing this harmful macho culture that's just as harmful to men as it is to women, because it tells men that, they can stay at home and take care of children if they would like to. They can be emotional. They have to go and, be violent, or all these negative things that are just as bad for men as it is for women. So they're trying to change this harmful culture. So that's a great organization. Another organization is NOMAS, which stands for National Organization for Men Against Sexism. Again, the same type of approach, because to be a real man or a man of strength, you don't need to go and beat up people or be crude or violent. You need to be someone that people can rely on, that someone people can look up to. So yeah, they're 2 great organizations.
And you had a website?
I do. Actually, in response to this, I was frustrated. It was about 3 or 4 years ago, and I was absolutely frustrated. I felt if I walked on, I felt victimized. If I yelled at the guy, I put myself in further danger. And so 4 years ago, I started a website called Hollaback NYC. You can find it at hollabacknyc.com. And what the website does is we encourage women to submit pictures of street harassers and to tell their story of street harassment. And it's had 2 impacts. First, it gives women an empowered response to street harassment, and second, it builds awareness about this issue. I would argue that every woman in New York City has been street harassed, and yet nobody talks about it. This website has really become the forum for bringing this conversation into New York City and making it a real issue.
And the police, public officials, what are they doing about it? What could they be doing about it?
Well, unfortunately, the police haven't always been cooperative. I mean, I've heard so many horror stories of women reporting, these kind of crimes, but more serious crimes like rape, where the police just weren't cooperative. And I don't think it's a wonder that most rapes get underreported because victims feel re-victimized by the system. As far as officials, again, it's not taken very seriously because people don't talk about it. People think women should take it as a compliment. It's not that serious. I think it is serious if every morning I have to think, should I be wearing this? Because I might get unwanted attention. Men usually don't have to do that, but your mothers, your daughters, your sisters have to do that every single morning. I think it's exhausting. As far as officials, one official who has been amazing is Manhattan's Borough President Scott Stringer. He started this campaign in New York City subways about street harassment, and he did a study where 80% of women reported that they did experience it, and everything from, verbal assault to just being groped and just very violent things. And as a result, there's this whole campaign on New York City subways where there are posters that say things like, street harassment.
I actually have to stop you. That campaign was a direct response of an op-ed that I wrote in the Daily News about street harassment and a coalition that's recently formed called New Yorkers for Safe Transit. You can actually find it at nyfst.org. And we've band together and we pushed the MTA. They initially weren't going to do it because they thought that putting anti-harassment ads up on the subway system was going to encourage street harassment. We were like, yeah, right. And those anti-terrorism ads encourage terrorism, and those anti-longhorn beetle ads encourage longhorn beetles to come out of the woodwork. No way. So we held their feet to the fire on it, and those ads are a direct result of the advocacy work of that newfound coalition.
Well, I had no idea. See, this just goes to show you that even someone who thinks she's educated really doesn't know, because this is something that's not talked about, and you don't talk about the people, real people making the changes. So again, we need to bring this out in the forefront and talk about it.
Visit us on the internet at www.pedestrians.org.